Ambassador stood in the great hall of the empire. The room was large and filled with gold and silver. Tall pillars reached up to the ceiling, and strange lights floated in the air like small suns. Hundreds of nobles stood around the edges of the room. They watched with their 4 eyes, each pair blinking at different times. Had been to this hall many times before. He had known the old emperor for 20 years. They had shared meals together. They had talked about peace and trade. They had even laughed together, which was rare for but emperor was dead now. His heart had stopped 3 months ago, and his young son had taken the throne. Prince was now emperor. He was only 30 years old, which was very young for His skin was the same pale blue as his father's, but his eyes held none of his father's wisdom. Where the old emperor had been patient and thoughtful, the young one was quick and proud. He sat on the golden throne and looked down with clear dislike. Bowed low, as was the custom. He had brought gifts from Earth, fine wines, rare metals, and a piece of art made by one of humanity's greatest artists. These gifts sat on a table near the throne. Emperor said in a calm voice, "I come to offer the continued friendship of the human coalition. Your father was a great friend to my people. We hope to build the same bond with you." The young emperor did not move. He did not even look at the gifts. His 4 eyes stayed fixed on, and his thin mouth curved into something like a smile, but not a kind one. "Friendship," said. The word sounded ugly when he spoke it. "My father spoke often of this friendship with humans. He spent hours talking with you, treating you as equals." Heard the tone in the young ruler's voice. He had dealt with difficult people before. He kept his face calm and pleasant. "Your father was wise," said. "Our two peoples have much to offer each other." Laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. The nobles around the room shifted nervously. Some of them had known for years. They had seen the good things that came from the human alliance. They looked worried now. Much to offer stood up from his throne. He was tall, much taller than were large beings with 4 arms and thick bodies. "What can humans offer us? You are small. You are weak. You live such short lives that you barely have time to learn anything useful." Said nothing. He kept his hands at his sides and his face still. "My father was a fool," continued. He walked down the steps from his throne. "He wasted time and resources on your kind. He gave you trade routes. He shared our technology. And for what? So that humans could pretend to be important." The hall was very quiet now. Even the floating lights seemed to dim a little. The nobles were frozen in place. Many of them were looking at the floor, unable to watch what was happening. "Emperor," one of the older advisors said softly, "perhaps we should discuss this in private." Silence. Spun to face the advisor. "I am the emperor now. I will speak as I wish." He turned back to, "Do you know what humans are to the galaxy, Ambassador? You are nothing. You are a young species from a small planet. You have been in space for only a few hundred years. The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years." Remained quiet. His dark eyes watched the young emperor, but he showed no anger. He showed nothing at all. "Look at him," said to the nobles around the room. "Look at this human. He cannot even speak. He knows I am right. Humans are lesser beings. They are like children playing at being adults. My father should have never wasted his time on them." One of the nobles, a female named, stepped forward. She had been a friend of the old emperor. "The human alliance has brought us great." "I said silence." His voice echoed off the walls. "I did not ask for your opinion." He looked back with cold eyes. "You will return to your leaders, human. You will tell them that the Empire no longer needs their friendship. We are ending all trade agreements. We are closing our borders to human ships. The people will not lower themselves to deal with primitives any longer." Took a slow breath. He looked at the young emperor for a long moment. The hall waited in heavy silence. Then, without a single word, turned around. He walked toward the great doors of the hall. His footsteps were the only sound. He did not look back. He did not argue. He did not plead. He simply walked away. watched him go with a proud smile on his face. Yes, run away, human. Run back to your little planet. But some of the older nobles did not share their emperor's pride. Lady watched the human ambassador leave, and her 4 eyes were full of fear. She had studied humans for many years. She knew something that the young emperor did not understand. When a human argued, it meant they still cared. When a human fought, it meant they still hoped. But when a human went silent and walked away, it meant something very different. It meant that the human had made a decision. The great doors closed behind Ambassador. The sound echoed through the hall like a final word, and Lady felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. She had seen humans in the Great War against the Collective. She had seen what happened when humans stopped talking and started acting. The young emperor had just made a terrible mistake. Walked through the long halls of the palace. Guards watched him pass, but none of them spoke. His ship was waiting in the landing area outside. His crew would be ready to leave. His assistant, a young woman named Sarah, was waiting at the ship's entrance. She saw his face and knew immediately that something was wrong. "Sir, how did the meeting go?" "Climb the ramp into the ship. We're leaving. Contact Earth Command. Tell them Protocol 7 is in effect." Sarah's face went pale. Protocol 7. She had heard of it but never thought she would see it used. "Sir, are you sure?" Stopped and looked back at the palace. It was beautiful in the setting sun, all gold and silver against a purple sky. He thought of old Emperor, his friend, who had worked so hard to build peace between their peoples. "The boy made his choice," said quietly. "Now he will learn what that choice means." The ship lifted off and flew toward the stars. And in the palace below, a young emperor celebrated his victory, not knowing that he had just started his own destruction. 3 months passed after Ambassador left the empire. At first, nothing seemed different. Emperor continued to rule with a proud hand. He told his people that they were better off without the humans. He said that the empire would be stronger on its own. But slowly, things began to change. The first problem was small. A mining station on the edge of their territory sent a message asking for help. Their equipment was breaking, and they needed parts. But the parts they needed came from human factories that had never bothered to learn how to make them. "Find another supplier," ordered. His advisors tried. They contacted a trading species that dealt with many races, but they said they could not help. Their ships had stopped traveling through space. When asked why, they would only say that they had found other routes that were safer. The second problem was bigger. Pirates began to appear along the trade routes. They attacked merchant ships and stole cargo. The Navy was sent to stop them, but the pirates always seemed to know where the Navy would be. They struck in one place and vanished before help could arrive. "Where are they coming from?" demanded. His generals had no answer. The pirates were using old ships with no markings. They were fast and clever, and they seemed to have no fear of the empire. Lady went to see the emperor one evening. She bowed low and spoke carefully. "Emperor, I have been studying these problems. I believe they are connected." Sat on his throne looking bored. "Speak then." "The equipment parts we need, the avoiding our space, the pirates attacking our ships." She paused. "These things started after the humans left." The emperor's eyes narrowed. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that humans were doing more for our empire than we knew." Chose her words with care. "Human companies made the parts for our mining equipment. Human merchant routes brought goods through our space, which made other traders follow. And human patrol ships helped keep the outer territories safe from pirates." "We do not need human help," said coldly. "We are the empire. We survived for 10,000 years before humans even learned to make fire." "Yes, Emperor, but the galaxy has changed. No species survives alone anymore. Your father understood this." The mention of his father made angry. "My father was weak. He let humans influence him too much. I will not make the same mistake." He waved his hand. "You are dismissed." left the throne room with a heavy heart. She had tried to warn him, but the young emperor would not listen. The months continued to pass and the problems grew worse. Without human patrol ships, the pirates became bolder. They started attacking larger targets. 3 cargo ships were destroyed in a single week. Then came the news from the Confederacy. They had been rivals of for centuries, but the human alliance had kept them peaceful. Humans traded with both sides and kept the balance. But now, without human ships in the area, they were moving troops to the border. They would not dare attack us, said, but his voice was less certain now. Emperor, one of his generals, said, our fleet is spread thin trying to fight the pirates. If they attack now, we may not be able to stop them. Then recall the ships from the outer territories. If we do that, we lose those territories to the pirates. Slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. This is impossible. How can everything fall apart so quickly? No one answered him, but everyone in the room was thinking the same thing. They were thinking about the human ambassador who had walked out in silence 3 months ago. They were thinking about how quickly the empire had changed after that day. Far away on the human colony world of New Geneva, Ambassador sat in a quiet garden. He was reading reports from around the galaxy. The empire was in trouble and everyone knew it. A young officer approached him. Sir, we have received a message from they are asking to open talks again. Looked up from his reports. Who sent the message? Someone named Lady. She says she speaks for a group of nobles who want to repair the relationship. Thought about this for a moment, and the emperor. No word from him, sir. Nodded slowly. Tell Lady that we are willing to listen, but the message must come from the emperor himself. We do not negotiate with subordinates. The officer bowed and left, returned to his reading, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about young emperor sitting on his golden throne, watching his empire crumble around him. The boy had been cruel and proud. He had insulted not just but all of humanity, and now he was learning the cost of that insult. But did not feel happy about this. He had liked the old emperor. He had hoped that the son would grow into a good ruler. Instead, the young fool had thrown away everything his father had built. The game was not over yet. There were more moves to make, and knew that before this was finished, the empire would learn a lesson that it would never forget. Humans were not primitive, humans were not weak, and humans never ever forgot an insult. 6 months after the human ambassador left, the empire was in crisis. The Confederacy had attacked 3 border worlds. The Navy fought bravely, but they were losing. Without human ships to help, they were outnumbered. Emperor sat in his war room, surrounded by generals and advisors. Maps of the galaxy floated in the air, showing red markers where forces had advanced. There was a lot of red. We need more ships, one general said. We have no more ships, another replied. Half our fleet is fighting pirates in the outer territories. Then recall them. If we do that, we lose the outer territories forever. Listen to them argue. His face was pale and tired. He had not slept well in weeks. The proud smile that he had worn when dismissing the human ambassador was long gone. What about allies, he asked. Who can we call for help? The room went quiet. The advisors looked at each other, but no one wanted to speak. Finally, Lady stepped forward. Emperor, we have contacted every major power in the sector. The trading consortium refuses to get involved. The Dominion says they are neutral. The Pax Unity will only help if we pay them, and we do not have the resources. And the humans, the words came out before could stop them. Kept her face still. The humans say they are willing to talk, but they will only speak with you directly, Emperor, and they want a full apology for the insult given to their ambassador. His hands tightened on the arms of his chair. An apology. The humans wanted him to admit that he was wrong. The proud emperor who had called them primitives and lesser beings would have to bow his head and say sorry. Never, he whispered. I would rather die. Emperor, one of the older generals said carefully, dying is easy, but you are not alone. Millions are depending on you. Their lives are in your hands. Did not answer. He stood up and walked out of the war room. His guards followed, but he ignored them. He walked through the halls of the palace, past the golden pillars and floating lights, until he reached a small room at the back. This had been his father's private study. Old Emperor had spent many hours here, reading and thinking, had avoided this room since his father's death. It reminded him too much of the man he was trying to be different from. But now he stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The room was simple. A desk, some chairs, and shelves full of books. On one wall hung a painting that had never paid attention to before. It was a painting of two figures shaking hands. One was his father, dressed in royal robes. The other was a human, much smaller, with dark hair and kind eyes. Did not know who the human was, but he could guess. The first human ambassador, a voice said behind him. Spun around. Lady stood in the doorway. How dare you follow me, he said angrily. Forgive me, Emperor, but someone needs to tell you the truth and your generals are too afraid. She stepped into the room and pointed at the painting. That is Ambassador William Torres. He came to us 40 years ago when the Empire was in another war. We were losing to the Collective. They had better ships, better weapons, and more soldiers. We were about to fall. Said nothing. He had heard stories about the war, but he had been too young to remember it. The humans offered to help, continued. At that time, they were even smaller than they are now. A young species just starting to explore the galaxy, but they offered to send ships and soldiers to fight beside us. Why would they do that? Because Ambassador Torres believed that the galaxy would be a worse place if the Empire fell. He convinced his leaders that helping us was the right thing to do. She paused. Your father never forgot that. The humans saved our empire. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. The young emperor looked at the painting. The human in the picture was smiling. His father was smiling too. I did not know this, said quietly. Your father tried to tell you, but you were always too busy being angry at him, sighed. He loved you. Everything he did so that you would inherit a strong and peaceful empire. The human alliance was part of that. He knew that alone we are strong, but together with humans we are unbeatable. Felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to realize what it was. Shame. Deep, burning shame for what he had done. I called them primitives, he said. I told them they were nothing. Yes, and now the galaxy knows that are not to be trusted. Other species are staying away from us. They are afraid that if they become our friends, we will turn on them too, shook her head. Your words did not just insult the humans, Emperor. They showed everyone that the Empire does not honor its friendships. Can this be fixed? Was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. The humans are a proud people in their own way. They do not forget being treated badly, but they are also practical. If you show them that you truly regret what you did, they might give you another chance. And if I refuse to apologize, then the Empire will fall. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but without allies we cannot survive. They will keep pushing. The pirates will keep taking. And one by one our worlds will fall until there is nothing left. Closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his face was different. The pride was still there, but it was smaller now, quieter. Send a message to the humans, he said. Tell them that Emperor requests a meeting with Ambassador. Tell them that I am willing to discuss what happened. Bowed her head. I will send the message at once, Emperor. She left the room and remained alone with the painting. He stared at it for a long time, thinking about his father, about the humans, about everything he had done wrong. On a space station at the edge of human territory, Ambassador received the message. He read it carefully, then called his team together. The one to talk, he said. About time, one of his officers said. Their empire is falling apart. Yes, and now we need to decide what to do about it. Looked around the room. We have a choice. We can refuse to help them, let them suffer for the insult, watch their empire crumble and pick up the pieces later. Would serve them right, someone muttered. Maybe, but that is not who we are. Walked to a window and looked out at the stars. Humans have been in space for 400 years. In that time, we have learned many things. We have learned that holding grudges is easy but costly. We have learned that enemies today can be friends tomorrow. And we have learned that the strongest thing you can do is offer a hand to someone who has wronged you. The room was quiet. We will meet with the, said. We will hear what they have to say, and if they are truly sorry, we will help them, not because they deserve it, but because it is the right thing to do. That is what makes us human. A week later, ship arrived at the last time he had been here, he had walked away in silence. Now he was returning and the whole galaxy was watching. The throne room was different now. The last time had stood here, it had been full of nobles in fine clothes, watching with curious eyes. Now many of those nobles were gone. Some had died in the war. Others had fled to safer worlds. The room felt empty and cold. Emperor sat on his golden throne, but he did not look like the proud ruler from before. His face was thin and tired. His robes were less fine, and his 4 eyes, instead of looking down with contempt, now watched with something close to respect. Walked to the center of the room and stopped. He did not bow. That would come later if things went well. Ambassador said, his voice was softer than before. Thank you for coming. Emperor kept his voice neutral. You asked for this meeting. I am here to listen. The room was silent. Every present was watching, waiting to see what their emperor would do. Lady stood near the throne, her hands clasped together, hope and fear mixed on her face. Took a deep breath. Then slowly he stood up from his throne. He walked down the steps, his footsteps echoing in the quiet hall. He stopped in front of and the two faced each other. 6 months ago, began, you stood in this same spot. I said terrible things to you. I called your people primitives. I said humans were lesser beings. I ended our alliance and sent you away. Said nothing, he waited. I was wrong. The words seemed to cost great effort. I was young and foolish and full of pride. I thought that my empire was so strong that we did not need anyone. I thought that by pushing you away I was showing strength. He paused. I was showing weakness and stupidity. There were soft sounds of surprise from the nobles around the room. They had never heard their emperor speak like this. My father spent his life building the relationship between our peoples, continued. He knew that humans were valuable allies. He knew that the galaxy is too dangerous for any species to stand alone. I threw away everything he built because I was too proud to listen. Lowered his head, for this was a great gesture of shame. Ambassador, I apologize, not just to you but to all of humanity. I was wrong about your people. You are not primitives. You are not lesser beings. You are strong and wise and good, and I beg you to forgive my foolishness. The hall was completely silent, looked at the young emperor with thoughtful eyes. He could see that the apology was real. The pride that had burned so bright before was now mixed with genuine regret. Emperor said finally, I accept your apology. Relief washed over his face, but held up his hand. However, an apology is just words. Words are easy. What matters now is action. Your empire is in trouble. They are attacking. Pirates control your trade routes. Your people are suffering. What do you plan to do about it? Straightened up. I plan to be a better ruler than I have been. I plan to listen to my advisors instead of ignoring them, and I plan to honor my allies instead of insulting them. That is a good start, but it is not enough. Reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed a map of the galaxy with human territory highlighted. The human coalition is prepared to help you, said. We can send ships to fight the. We can clear the pirates from your trade routes. We can restore order to your outer territories. But this time, there will be conditions. Nodded slowly, name them. First, the Empire will sign a new treaty with humanity. This treaty will be public. The whole galaxy will see that we are allies again. This will show other species that they can trust you. Agreed. Second, you will open your technology to human scientists. Your father shared some things with us, but there is more that we can learn from each other. True allies do not keep secrets. Hesitated only a moment, agreed. Third and most important, you will learn from this experience. You are young, Emperor. You have made mistakes, but mistakes can make you stronger if you learn from them. Do not let this lesson be wasted. The young Emperor looked at for a long moment. Then he did something that no emperor had done before. He extended his hand, the human way. I accept your conditions, Ambassador, and I give you my word that I will become the ruler my father wanted me to be. Took his hand and shook it. Then we have a deal. Around the room, the nobles began to clap. It was a human gesture that they had learned over the years. Lady had tears in her 4 eyes. The alliance was restored. But the work was just beginning. Human ships would need to be sent. Plans would need to be made. Wars would need to be won. The road ahead would be long and hard. Looked at the young emperor and saw something that had not been there before. Humility, growth, the beginnings of wisdom. Maybe thought this boy would become a great ruler after all, not despite his mistakes but because of them. The battle for the empire lasted 3 months. Human warships arrived within weeks of the new treaty being signed. They were smaller than ships, but they were fast and deadly. Human captains had learned to fight in the long years of humanity's expansion into the galaxy. They knew tricks that they had never seen. The first battle happened at the gate, a strategic point that controlled access to 5 worlds. They had gathered a fleet of 60 ships there, planning to push deeper into space. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. The human fleet, led by Admiral, arrived with only 30 ships. The commander laughed when he saw them. 30 against 60. This would be a slaughter. But Admiral did not fight the way they expected. Instead of charging in, he split his fleet into 5 groups. Each group attacked from a different direction. The used to traditional formation battles did not know how to respond. Human ships darted in and out, striking fast and then vanishing before they could hit back. They targeted engines and weapons, crippling ships instead of destroying them. Within 2 hours, half the fleet was disabled. The commander called for retreat. His remaining ships fled back to their own territory. The Battle of Gate was over, and the humans had won without losing a single ship. Emperor watched the battle from a command center on the. His generals stood beside him, their faces showing amazement. How did they do that? One general asked. Our ships could never move like that. Human ships are built differently, Lady explained. They value speed and flexibility over raw power, and their captains are trained to think creatively, to adapt, to find solutions that no one expects. Nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand why his father had valued the humans so much. It was not just their technology or their numbers. It was the way they thought, the way they solved problems. The war continued through the following weeks. Battle by battle, the human forces pushed the back. At the same time, human patrol ships hunted down the pirates that had been attacking trade routes. The pirates, who had grown bold during the months of chaos, suddenly found themselves facing enemies that could match their speed and cunning. One by one, the pirate fleets were destroyed or captured. Trade began to flow again. Supplies reached the struggling worlds. People who had been living in fear started to hope again. Emperor traveled to the front lines to see the war for himself. He visited wounded soldiers and thanked them for their sacrifice. He spoke with human officers and learned from their experience. He was no longer the proud boy who sat on his throne and gave orders. He was becoming a true leader. During one visit to a forward base, met Admiral. The human admiral was older, with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been fighting wars since before was born. "Admiral, I must thank you," said. "Your people have saved my empire." Shook his head. "We did not save it, Emperor. We helped you save it. There is a difference." "What do you mean?" "The soldiers fighting beside us, the nobles who stayed loyal to you, the people who kept working and hopping even when things were darkest. They are the ones who saved your empire. We just gave them a chance." Thought about this. He remembered the generals who had stayed with him even when he made foolish decisions. He remembered Lady, who had told him the truth even when he did not want to hear it. He remembered the common people who had not given up, even when their emperor had failed them. "I understand," he said quietly. "My people are stronger than I knew." Smiled. "That is what good leaders learn eventually. Your strength comes from your people, not from yourself. A ruler who forgets that is a ruler who falls." The final battle came at a place called the Crimson Nebula. They had gathered their remaining forces there for one last stand. If they won, they could still threaten the Empire. If they lost, the war would be over. Human and ships worked together perfectly. Battleships with their heavy weapons formed the center. Human cruisers protected the flanks. Smaller ships from both sides swept through the enemy formation like hunting animals. Watched from the bridge of his flagship. He had insisted on being part of the battle. His advisors had argued, but he would not change his mind. "I sent my people to die while I sat safe at home," he had told them. "Never again. If we fight, I fight with them." The battle was long and hard. Ships were destroyed on both sides. Fire and light filled the nebula. For hours the outcome was uncertain. Then, at the crucial moment, made a decision. He ordered his flagship to lead a charge into the heart of the formation. His crew was shocked, but they obeyed. The flagship plunged forward, weapons firing. Human ships followed, protecting its sides. Together, they cut through the formation like a blade through cloth. The commander saw his fleet splitting apart. He tried to rally his ships, but it was too late. The momentum had shifted. Ships began to surrender or flee. By the next morning, the war was over. The Confederacy had been defeated. The Empire was safe. On the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by cheering crew members, stood alone near a window. He watched the stars, thinking about everything that had happened. 6 months ago, he had insulted the humans and sent them away. He had thought he was strong. He had thought he did not need anyone. Now he knew better. Strength was not about standing alone. It was about standing together. It was about learning from mistakes. It was about becoming better than you were before. A message came from Ambassador, who had watched the battle from a safe distance. It was short and simple. "Well done, Emperor. Your father would be proud." Read the message 3 times. Then he closed his eyes and let the tears come. Tears of relief, tears of gratitude, and tears of grief for the father he had not appreciated until it was too late. When he opened his eyes again, he was ready to face the future. He had much work to do, an empire to rebuild, a peace to maintain, and a debt to the humans that he could never fully repay. But he would try. Every day, for the rest of his life, he would try. 5 years passed after the war. The empire grew stronger than it had ever been. New trade routes were opened. Technology advanced. Peace spread across the sector. Emperor had changed completely from the foolish boy he had once been. He was wise now, patient and thoughtful like his father. He listened to his advisors. He treated other species with respect. He remembered the lesson he had learned, and he made sure others learned it too. On the anniversary of the new treaty with humanity, a great celebration was held on the. Guests came from across the galaxy. Human ambassadors and admirals walked among nobles. Children from both species played together in the palace gardens. Ambassador was there, older now but still sharp. He stood near the great fountain in the center of the celebration, watching the crowd with quiet satisfaction. Emperor found him there. The two had become friends over the years, not the simple friendship of allies, but the deep friendship of people who had been through hard times together. Ambassador said, "I have been thinking about the day we first met, the real meeting after my apology." Smiled, "I remember, you were terrified. I thought you would refuse to help. I thought you would let my empire fall as punishment for what I had done," shook his head. "But you did not, you helped us. Why?" Was quiet for a moment. "Do you remember what I told you? That the strongest thing you can do is offer a hand to someone who has wronged you." "I remember. Humans have a long history. We have fought many wars. We have made many mistakes. And we have learned that revenge feels good in the moment, but it never leads anywhere good. The species that hold grudges are the species that die out. The species that forgive are the species that survive. Considered this. But you did not just forgive us, you helped us. You sent ships and soldiers to fight our war. Because helping you was the right thing to do, and because we knew that a strong empire would make the galaxy safer for everyone." Paused. "Also, to be honest, we knew that you would remember what we did. A debt like that creates a bond stronger than any treaty." "So it was strategy." "Partly, but not entirely." Looked at the young children playing nearby, human and together. "I believed that you could change. I believed that the foolish young ruler who insulted me could grow into something better, and I was right." Watched the children too. "Sometimes I think about what would have happened if things had gone differently, if you had not come back, if my empire had fallen. It is better not to think about that. The past is the past. What matters is what we do now." "I suppose you are right," smiled, a warm and genuine smile. "Ambassador, I have something for you." He reached into his robe and pulled out a small box. Inside was a medal, made of gold and silver, with a blue gem at its center. "This is the Star of," explained. "The highest honor our empire can give. Only 12 beings in our history have received it. You will be the 13th and the first human." Looked at the medal with surprise. "Emperor, I cannot accept this. I was just doing my job." "You were doing much more than that. You showed mercy when you could have shown cruelty. You offered friendship when you could have offered revenge. You believed in me when no one else did." Pressed the medal into his hands. "Please accept it, not as a reward but as a symbol of what our peoples have built together." Held the medal carefully. It was beautiful, but that was not why his eyes grew wet. It was because of what it represented. Two species that had been enemies, now bound together by something stronger than war or politics. "I accept," he said quietly, "with humble gratitude." Smiled again. Then he turned to the crowd and raised his voice. "Friends, I have an announcement." The celebration quieted. Everyone turned to look at their emperor. 5 years ago, this empire was dying. We had pushed away our allies. We had let pride and foolishness guide us. We were falling into darkness. The crowd was silent. Many of them remembered those terrible times. But we were saved, not by our own strength alone, but by the mercy and friendship of humanity. They came when we needed them. They fought beside us. They believed in us when we had stopped believing in ourselves. Pointed to, who looked uncomfortable with all the attention. "This man, Ambassador, is a true hero, not because he fights well, although he does, not because he is clever, although he is, but because he showed us what it truly means to be strong. Strength is not about standing alone. Strength is about lifting others up. Strength is about forgiveness. Strength is about hope." He walked over to and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Today, I award him the Star of, but more than that, today I declare that all humans are honorary citizens of the Empire. From this day forward, wherever our flag flies, humans are welcome as brothers and sisters." The crowd erupted in cheers. Human and alike celebrated together. The sound of joy filled the palace and spilled out into the city beyond. Later that night, When the celebration had quieted and the guests had gone, Emperor stood in his father's old study. The painting of the first human ambassador still hung on the wall. "Father," said softly, "I hope you are proud of me. I made terrible mistakes, but I learned from them, and I tried to become the ruler you wanted me to be." There was no answer, of course. The dead do not speak, but felt something warm in his chest, as if his father was somehow listening. He turned away from the painting and walked to the window. Outside, the city sparkled with lights. His people were happy and safe. The empire was strong. And across the stars, on 100 different worlds, humans worked side by side, building, growing, creating a future that neither species could have made alone. That was the real strength of humanity, knew now, not their technology or their military might. It was their ability to turn enemies into friends, their willingness to give second chances, their belief that anyone, even a foolish young emperor, could become something better. The human who had walked away in silence had come back, and in doing so, he had taught the most important lesson of his life. True power is not found in pride. True power is found in grace. And humanity had grace beyond measure.